Welcome back, Home Church. This is the Home Church podcast. We've got the one, the only Nathan Winfield. Ow, ow! The picture that you just seen on the screen, this is part 2. So for those of you that joined us on the first part, you probably already heard and seen the picture that is up on the screen at the moment. That there be Nathan Winfield and Wayne. I'm Wilson. There we go. It's pretty simple. Yeah. But the QR code down there in the corner closest to it, that is Nathan Winfield, and the gentleman standing up, that is Wayne Wilson. So he has done something for all of you listeners that are looking and or wondering what the Beards and Riffs product is. If you scan that little QR code in the corner, that will take you straight to the Beards and Riffs website. We here love each and every product. We spoke on part 1. So I would just like you to reiterate again, you're not just selling beard products. There are a plethora of other items. We have soaps, we've got apparel, we've got hats. What else is there? Let's see, you've got shirts.
You've got a hair pomade, beard and hair pomade, goat milk soaps, all the merch you want.
Are you still doing the whiskey barrels or?
So Wayne does those one-off scenarios, but we can do them. I don't think they're on the website or anything.
They are on. Well, not anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah,
I think they were.
Not.
But we do. We do bourbon barrel stave guitar hangers and some things like that. And when I say we, it's not me. That is 100% Wayne. 100% Wayne.
So we are, with this part 2, we are going to dig in heavily to the Beards and Riffs. So we'll go into more detail on that in just a little bit here, but just wanted to go ahead and throw that out there. And what, again, is that code to give the listeners the discount?
It is 417HCP for Home Church Podcast. 417HCP, and that'll give you 10% off your individual purchases.
And it will it'll ask for the code whenever you're going to check out or around that time, whenever you get your product selected and stuff, you'll just type that code in, get you 10% off. We appreciate you, again, joining us. You're a very busy man on the road, quite a bit here lately with the Beards and Riffs. So in the first part, we got the basic laydown of the law of what the some highlights of the Winfield story, but we're going to get into the more current. Like I said, we'll be speaking Beards and Riffs. But one thing that I would like to talk about, mentioned earlier that Larry, hi folks, Larry here. Larry's wife, Tanya, sent out a text message, and in that text message, she made a comment. She remembered that meeting the Winfields through, they were volunteers at the coffee shop at Venture Church, in which, for those of you that are Home Church podcast listeners, we've talked before about that's a lot of the people from Venture Church are here at Home Church now. So I would like to talk about that because we've gotten Zach and Caitlin, basically all the people that have gone to Venture, and they kind of found themselves here at this place called Home Church. So you were in a part of that as well, you and Sarah, your wife Sarah. So seeing how the blue, what was it, the blue room?
The blue room was the very first one, yeah.
So going from Venture, and I don't know if your story involves heartbreak or not through that whole split. So we'll dive into that right now. What was it that kept you and Sarah here at Home Church? Because I know there are some that went elsewhere, but you and Sarah stuck here. What was it that kind of kept you in the game?
Honestly, it was relationship. I mean, you mentioned, when Venture, kind of split off. Was there heartache? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were people that you come accustomed to worshiping with and seeing at church on Sundays, and we were there for many years, building relationship. So yeah, it was hard. The manner in which the split happened. There were, and I knew, being in ministry there, you hear things. We happened to be on a work trip when everything went down and the meeting came and the split happened. So we weren't there. But all that being what it is, we knew a lot of people that were getting together, and I know Clayton and Jamie and others thought, you know what, this we need a safety net. We don't want anybody to to be lost in the shuffle because there were hurt feelings and there was a church split or whatever. And so, we know it as home church now, but it just was a body of believers that just wanted to circle the wagons and make sure that nobody got lost in the fray. And that was the Blue Room experience, right? And so it wasn't too many meetings that we were doing that before we decided, you know what, this is what church is. It's a body full of hurt people, that are doing life together, that are seeking God together. It's a community of believers. It's like, we didn't have a whole lot of people. There might have been 20 or 30 of us, maybe. I can't
If
remember
that, yeah.
if that. But we had a guy who could play guitar, somebody could sing, pastor could preach. I think might have been a couple of people that were
Good old
that
Daniel Doyle
that
up
were
there
doing it. Yeah,
playing guitar. Yeah.
Daniel Doyle was there playing. So there were a lot of joint supplying in the infancy of home church, and it wasn't too many meetings in where we decided,
Yeah.
you know what, um, let's do church, and why not call it home church? This is
Right.
finding God, finding community, as finding purpose. That's the cry of church, and that's what we were doing healthily anyway. And so made a decision to do the church. And
I think Blue Room maybe lasted 5-6 weeks.
yeah, it
at
wasn't it
most.
wasn't long. It wasn't
Yeah.
long. Until we ended up here in this facility. But no, it's when you get and when you think back to the infancy of home church, and you see the oh God, the people who have been worshiping and following God for a long time, the wisdom, the saints, that and the hearts of people that had invested in Cornerstone and then Venture, that still wanted to participate and go forward with God. How could you not be excited about that? And I remember having lunch with Pastor Clayton and Jamie, and it was the first time. Pastor Jess Gibson was my pastor for a long time, and then Rick Cochran, as he was taking over for Jess. Those have been my two pastors, and we were sitting down there and having lunch with them and talking about church structure and where do we see ourselves fitting in and all that kind of stuff. And I said it out loud, and I don't know, at the time it didn't feel all that meaningful, but this is before I think home church was official. And I was like, Clayton, as far as I'm concerned, you're my pastor. And that just, God, and seeing the calling on his life being fulfilled, and watching him grow as the shepherd of home church has really been nothing short of astonishing. It's just been a joy to watch. I mean, I knew Clayton back in his master's commission days, back when he was a teenager. And to see where he is now compared to what he was doing then, has really just been a joy to watch, and a pleasure to serve with, and underneath him in whatever capacity or whatever hat I'm wearing. But there's definitely been seasons of growth for home church, and we're in an excellent season now. So
And one of the things that we spoke about before we started this part two was we were going to talk about seasons. And so we'll get into that now. As seasons being the main headline of the story, we talked about how you started worship and where we're at home church now in worship. So let's start that adventure. How are you approached with worship, to kind of be in a leadership role there? How did that all begin?
Well, it was funny because when we first started, I was heavily involved on the worship team for Venture Church before home church started. But there were a few people that were very gifted in leading worship. Caleb was kind of took over that position when we first started, and I was kind of ready to turn the page of worship and move on to something else in church. I'd done worship for so long, I wanted to get into some other type of hat to wear. And so I didn't participate in worship in as far as being on the stage for the first few months, I guess it was, of home church existence. Obviously, worship never is far from me because I participate all the time in that, but officially wasn't participating. And Caleb got called on to another position and couldn't lead worship anymore. And so then, because we were kind of thin a little bit at the time, I don't think Dana and Tyler were there
No,
at
no,
the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
And so there was kind of a big question mark. Well, how is that going to happen? And I think we were at a board meeting, and we were trying to address that. And it was like kind of like one of those record stop moments where everybody's like, "Who's going to lead worship?" And it just and like looked at me, and I was like, I kind of felt a little bit of the pressure. And so when I agreed to do it, I was very clear, and I was like, short term, I'm your guy until somebody else comes. Yeah, I'll do it. I mean, I don't know how excellent you're going to get it. I mean, I can sing, but when you're talking about leading worship and leading a team, that just adds infinite complexity to, to spiritual growth for your team members and planning songs. I've always been the guy that's just like, Nate, I need you to sing this song. I need you to do it in this key. I got you. I can do that. But now you want me to come up with a set list, and you want me to schedule people, and I got to recruit folks and all the things. And I was like, that just really doesn't sound like a gig that I want. But to land my plane, I did it, and I found a lot of joy in doing that. And shortly after I agreed to do that, we had Dana and Tyler. They came on board,
And then Mandy and
and
Leonard
then
came
Mandy
on. Yeah.
and Leo came on board. And for a startup church, I'm just gonna ring God's bell here. He has brought a strong and talented worship team to home church.
The lineup we have is
We
stacked.
have people comment all the time about how great worship is at home church, and to see the talent that God brought to home church from its infancy is really astonishing.
Right.
And so I put in some processes and things like that to get a worship team up and going, and that was the season that that God had for me, in our infancy, was to help get that in order. In that, Dana and Tyler started participating, Mandy and Leo, and they were both heavy contributors in the success of worship team growth. They may have known it, they may not have known it, but in the next season, God had something different for me. My life took a change where somebody else was going to have to step up. Well, they were already leading in their own ways, even when I was quote unquote the worship leader for home church. But to be perfectly blunt with you, worship wouldn't have happened without those two groups of folks.
And see, it's important that you understand seasons. For everybody that's listening, seasons are something, Clayton's talked about it. It's something that can make you or break you. If you're not willing to give up your seat, somebody else doesn't have that chance to show what they can do. So you're being selfish there.
That's huge.
And B, you're just going to wear yourself out
Right.
if you don't go with the season that God has you. And so for some people, it can be sort of a slap in the face to be brought down from no longer having all of these name tags placed on you as you walk into the church. You're no longer X, Y, and Z. You're just X. And no, I want to be known. Well, that's not what it's about. You have to understand that there are seasons. There's seasons where you're on top. There's seasons where it feels like you're on bottom. But the thing is that, like you just said, you had Dana and you have Tyler.
Yeah.
So you could have understood that right away. This is a little season. I'm willing to do this for you, God, however long you need it, but I don't want to be permanent. So that paved a way for it. You could have been stubborn and been like, no, I want to do beards and riffs,
Right.
and I want to do this. And
Right.
it's like you made the comment at base camp, you're burning the candle at both ends anyways. Where else are you going to put a wick at?
Right.
Are you going to,
That's it.
And so realizing that, okay, this is a season, this is just something. So as you sort of, and like I said, we will get into beards and riffs, but before we completely get into that, burning the candle on both ends, we go to that. it's not like it's just Beards and Riffs that is your job. Where else do you work?
So I'm also I work in recruiting for financial services company too. I've been there for 19 years, so that's technically my full-time job. So I've got two full-time jobs really with travel with Beards and Riffs and building my own business, and this company is been gracious enough to let me work Beards and Riffs into my schedule. So it's building your own business and trying to be excellent for your employer is it's a lot. And then when you add on ministry things and all of that, family time, your relationship with God. I mean, there's some stressors. And so this season for us has been a lot of stress. But you were talking about seasons, and like I said, I don't know if Dana and Tyler or Mandy and Leo, when they came on board, had envisioned them leading worship and being a bigger part of the X's and O's of leading worship. Maybe they did. I don't know. But they came in and just began to serve. And an important thing about seasons isn't just that you're in one, and you kind of touched on it. It's that you get everything out of that season that God intended you to have, because that season is preparation for the season that's coming. The season that was coming for them was to lead worship, right? To fly that home church worship banner where leadership rises and falls on your shoulders, right? You answer, you set up, you're responsible for the output and the spiritual growth of people on the team. And they begin to do those things without the title, and then all of a sudden they're promoted into that title and they just hit the ground running, and worship is stronger than it's ever been. And I think, a leadership plug here, and not that I can take credit for their talent or their decision making. All I did was set up an environment and a process. They plugged in and ran with it and did the thing that God wanted them to do in that season, and then they climb up. So leadership isn't just about executing a thing. It's about bringing people up and empowering them to do the thing when you're no longer doing it. And that's the ultimate grade of leadership, is when I step aside, how does worship happen? And a lot of my job was to recruit people, to engage people and allow them to do the thing that motivated them to do. And it was very easy with that group. I mean, any one of those people could have stepped in and do what I did. It just happened to be the season we were in. I was available and willing. So worship leader came to me, but any one of that group that I just mentioned could have led worship from day one. But they got in and they grew as a team. They grew as individuals. They grew in their relationship with God. And now worship here, whether I'm on the stage or not, worship is an amazing thing. And most times I'm sitting in the congregation and God's just moving, through the worship and praise that they're engaged in. So that's a perfect example of seasons of growth and preparation into you're the guy or the girl.
And so we're still going to stay in seasons, because I think that it can still maintain, and I think all of us have learned from what getting ready to bring up. So we'll go to the second ministry that you were involved in which you are wearing it on your hoodie there, Base Camp. We touched on it earlier, but that is something too that you were there. You've been Base Camp. Then you and Dennis, hi Dennis, love you, buddy.
You rise.
You two sort of spearhead Base Camp, and you, like you said, it wasn't Base Camp before; it was Men's Retreat. You and Dennis, brainstorming Base Camp. So we've got men's ministry now. Base Camp, although we do our one big event a year, there is a lot that goes into, and you wouldn't think for just 3 days, that it would be as much of
5 or 6 months planning.
Yeah, but there is a lot of process, and you and Dennis, if people that went to Base Camp only seen what Dennis food wise donated and
Right.
the time that he spent cooking
Right.
it, but you as well on preparation, on making sure that we've got silverware, on making sure that we've got chips, on making sure that we've got these dinners are prepared. So the reason that I bring that up again is because this was a season, again, Beards and Riffs is taking off. Again, you have a full-time job, 2 full-time jobs. So you're traveling places. Base camp was something that last year we were able to sort of realize we can delegate,
Yeah.
and we can, all of this planning that's going in, we can have multiple people. And so you and Dennis this year were kind enough to let us younglings, us little starter leaves, sort of kind of get a taste for what it's like. And you guys weren't. When I say that, I don't mean that they were sitting in the crowd.
No,
They were in the kitchen working. They were. It's like I made the comment about Clayton washing dishes, Clay Woolley washing dishes, Jacob washing dishes. I mean, everybody at home church, it seemed like that was a lead, was doing something at all times. So whenever I say that you guys kind of were able to let us take a hold, but that's just the point. There were so many things that you guys were doing. And we were able to talk about this one night over, you guys invited us over for dinner, but the fact that you were able to realize, I've got this and this going on, that right there, this is a season where this is happening.
Yep.
So what was that season like for you going up to the point of, and it's like I said, it's a year-long process. So last year we kind of had guys that were like, hey, do you mind if I? Hey, do you mind if I? And you and Dennis were like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
They're wanting now, and we can. So
Yep.
was that a relief or was it a struggle
Well,
to that point?
it's a double-edged sword, right? Because so rewinding it back, so base camp in its form now was two different things back in the day. When I first started, it was strictly Cornerstone. It was a men's group. They went down to the Buffalo Lodge in Arkansas for a weekend, and just hung out and did some devos and things like that, and that was impactful for me. There was an organization called Base Camp 417 that was several years ago, and a couple of friends of ours started that, and we got in. Dennis and I served on the board for for that organization, and that was kind of the next step. The next step in that was we would every month have a church. We would go to a church, and it would be open to all men in the 417. And so we would get together for a worship night. Somebody would bring a devotional. We'd cook some meats and do some things. But that was a pretty big deal, and that kind of because dudes are busy and everything else. There wasn't a real good job of delegation at that point. It was there were a couple of three guys that were doing the whole thing, and that was that was problematic at times because we're busy, we're entrepreneurs, all the things. And so that fizzled out. But at one point, we were having 120, 130 guys from 10 or 13 to 10, 15 different churches around the 417 area that would show up and would just worship God. From you would have Baptist folks there, you'd have Pentecostal folks, you'd have Lutheran folks, and it was really kind of amazing to see. You think about religions and different denominations being divisive, but for one night with 100 dudes just worshiping together and worshiping God together, you couldn't tell a difference between a Baptist and a Pentecostal at that point. I mean, everybody was worshiping and high-fiving and hands in the air. You'd never know what denomination it was. And so that was when Dennis and I really kind of started to think, you know what, there's a need. And it almost harkened back into the Promise Keepers days. And that might be a little bit
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking.
a little bit
about.
before you guys. But Promise Keepers was a big deal, and they would pack out football stadiums, doing men's things, right? And so that's when Dennis and I really started talking about, hey, we have an opportunity. We know that men are being attacked today more than ever. Dudes need to link arms in a healthy way, not just to spend time, but to spend time reinforcing godly values and reinforcing relationship with God. And what does it look like to sit down with a guy and not just be like, hey, how's life going? Be like, and Clay Woolley, I'm going to give a shout out to him. So I had been gone for several weeks. And this may have been the morning that I was talking about where I didn't even sing a lyric of a song. It was about 8:45 or so, and people are just him hawing around in the sanctuary, and I'm sitting down, and he comes over to me, and he says, "Hey, this could be a little bit awkward, but how are you doing spiritually?" And I kind of, whatever, because it's been a rough season. So not that we've fallen off the wagon or anything, but time is hard to come by to just focus on just me and God, right? And so it's been a little rough, but that's my point. My point is that's the kind of relationship we need to get to that cuts through the superficial. I care how you're doing at work. I care how your sports team's doing, and I care how the weather is. But at the end of the day, those are temporal things. The eternal thing is, how are you doing spiritually? He looked me in my eyes and he asked me. That is the relationships that we're trying to build with Base Camp. And so that's what we're trying to do. And so to answer your question the long way, the last few years, you guys included, have been participants and experienced what it's like to come and be a camper at Base Camp. And then you've also known what it was like to be in the behind the scenes and planning and what all is involved there. And so Dennis and I both found ourselves with Beards and Riffs and his Brick Street, barbecue and sub business. We were busy and didn't have the extra time to give to planning, but because you guys had experienced and you had started to be brought into those things, Base Camp happened this year in large part because of that. And another shout out to Justin Barton. Justin Barton, for the second consecutive year, I promise you, if it hadn't been for Justin's effort and his ability to pull things from everywhere into tangible things, Base Camp wouldn't have happened.
And if Larry hadn't have showed up in his SWAT outfit, we wouldn't have been protected. So
perfect.
I don't know
Yeah,
what
perfect.
would've-
Perfect.
without Larry's
Yeah.
SWAT outfit, I don't know what we would have done. That's what all I worried about. And when is he going to start wearing that daily? I want that to be a daily outfit. But so one of the things you mentioned, Clay Woolley. I love Clay to death, and his heart is just, I love it. But the comment that you made about, I think about you at work, or I don't think, I hope your day at work's going good and stuff. Clay come up to me and he was like, "Hey, you talked to Winfield?" And I'm like, "Well, here and there. Why?" "I just wonder how he's doing." He's like, and that's so, it's just cool to hear another individual ask about another individual, and it's okay, well, good. So it's the thing that I love about Base Camp so much is I feel like it's weird. You would think you would be able to be stronger in front of your wife than an individual you don't know. But there are things that I don't want to open up to until Brooklyn, because I'm like, she's not going to understand this. So it's sort of, if that's your mindset, which I'm able to be a little bit more open with her and understand that even if she doesn't get it, communication is key in a relationship.
Right.
But to be able to just talk to individuals, and we made the comment earlier that it's not just one church, it's Impact Church in Ozark that go as well. So there's individuals from another church that you talk to in these groups. It's not just, push you off by yourself with a bunch of random strangers, but at the same time, we try to do activities where you're going to mingle with other individuals, to know that you can say to another gentleman, "Hey, man, I don't know who you are, but I'm having this problem. Do you mind praying with me?"
Yeah.
Worship, there was a lot behind, I think, what made worship so impactful this year. I don't think that last year's was bad by any means, but I think this year's, there was a lot of different emotions and hearts and feelings behind it.
I think it was more raw this
Yeah,
year.
and that's and nothing, like I said, there was nothing against the year before and the year before, because the first year when we went to Arkansas, we sat out by the campfire, and that was amazing.
Yeah.
And then last year was our first time at Camp Galilee, and we had the amphitheater out there, so it
Right.
was cool. But this year we were comfortable with the amphitheater. I
And
think
it was
we
super cold.
it was
Oh
freezing.
my word!
And then you throw rain on top of it. Oof.
But I think
But
there were so many emotions
the
going
walls
on.
were torn down this year. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a couple of layers to that too. You know, I think last year was the first time that we had combined churches. So
Yeah.
the Impact guys, first off, what a great strong group of guys, right? I don't think they didn't really know what to expect. That was their first effort. So I think it was you probably got 1 foot in, 1 foot out type of a deal. But some of the feedback that we got from those guys from last year's event, they were all in and they were chomping at the bits, and we involved some of their guys in.
They wanted to make it a week-long process.
Right.
Yeah.
And so some of their guys actually participated. We blended together and they were in the planning and execution of events and things like that. And so now base camp is as a philosophy, it isn't a home church thing. It's not an Impact church thing. It's a, hey, let's get together with a group of guys and rock the kingdom type of a deal. But they were all in, and I think you felt this year, you felt the expectation of that. Worship was great last year. But now that they knew what to expect, and we blended a little bit of our teams together. So we had some of their instrumentalists and some of ours, and I did vocals and things like that. And so you had that blending of worship where everybody's all in and laser focused. And the great part about this, and again, I wasn't able. We had one rehearsal as a team. The guys who did base camp worship.
Yeah, with everybody there.
And I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I was the only vocalist, and I wasn't able to be there because I'm out of town. So instrumentally, they got their stuff together. We didn't get together as a team until the night of we were worshiping. We did a run through a couple of times, and that was it.
Yeah, you guys were performing at 7, and we
But
had rehearsal
you
at 6.
you never would have known. And two things. That's what a commitment from those guys, and what faith to know that we're going to come together and there's preparations have been made, even though I wasn't there to rehearse. But God's hand was on that, and I don't know what it felt like out there. I know what it felt like on the stage, and I, like I said in the last segment, I've been doing this for about 30 years, but I've never experienced the amount of freedom and camaraderie on a worship team than I did that night. I mean, there were times where Leo and Kevin were just thrashing together, and I just stopped singing, and I stepped back and just to watch God doing the thing, and it was so phenomenal that God orchestrated that whole thing. So I don't know what it felt like out there, but holy smokes, man! Up there, it was
Matt
fire.
Campbell looked like that old boy from AC/DC.
Dude,
he
so
was throwing down on that bad boy.
Dude, Matt absolutely shreds.
He looked like old Angus, old buddy. He was just meow, meow, meow. I thought we were at a paid concert. I was like, is this he getting paid by the hour? Isn't he? This man is giving it everything.
Have you ever heard him rap?
No.
Okay, next year's base camp, I'm gonna have him rap for y'all. He's a little budding rap star. I think he loves rap music more than anything else. He loves to rap. So, but we'll put that on the schedule next year.
From watching from a third party perspective, because I wasn't in the, I guess, congregation, if you want to call it that, or in the seats. I was running around taking photos and all that fun stuff, because I do a lot of the behind the scenes type stuff. But watching you have that freedom to step back, and then at times watching Matt shred, and then he had the freedom to step back, or Chris being able to stop playing and turn around.
It was awesome
and
having
praise.
Chris on stage doing it.
There was times where Leo actually stood up and left his keyboard and started praising, or some of the Impact guys, just to know that it was that freedom, and you guys could lean on each other, and then everybody, all the other 66 guys could, fill in when you had to step back from singing. It was really, really amazing to see.
And I think don't want to short him at all. I think Leo, I mean, you were the one who before was kind of the head of worship, but you being sort of pulled in all directions, you were delegating that to Leonard, and Leonard tore it up this year.
Right.
I mean, I think it definitely helped you saying, okay, God, I'm done with this. Who do you want?
Yep.
And it's like, Leo was like, man, I want to do something. I want to do something. And Leonard is, you could hand him that, somehow you could give him this, and he'd make an instrument and play it just as
Yeah.
well as
Right.
anybody that I've ever heard. And I don't
100%.
want to, got that on the phone. I don't want to, because I know between him and Tyler, they both work together on the set list and stuff like that. But Tyler wasn't able to be there this year, so it was kind of all Leo. And Leo was, I shouldn't say all Leo, but Leonard was so excited to be given that role. It's just, you see how God just absolutely bears fruit when you let him. And if you would have been selfish and said, I still got to do something, God, because I haven't given you my time, I've got to do this. And so, okay, well, this stack of plates that you're already wobbling, you're going to add another thing, and then it's just going to make you frustrated at God because you were like, God, why couldn't I do this? So you're able to delegate that. You were in a season and you understood it. And there was a moment in which I think everybody began to realize there's not one single man here that is writing down in notes, okay, so that's his weakness. All right, what is he? Okay, so he doesn't walk really good, so make that note. Like, just people are making fun of it. No, we all realized, okay, we're all vulnerable. We all need this right now. Like you said, we were all in. So that was what I mean, I just didn't want to short Leo any because Leo was so excited to get that role.
Well, so Leo, and I talked to him afterwards. I don't know if he even remembers committing to this, but I talked to him either that same night or the night after. I'm not sure. But I asked him if he wanted to just step in and just be the base camp, czar for worship, and he's just got that. Number one, he's just a good dude. Clay might challenge him for good dude award.
Yeah, but you haven't worked with Clay, so
and that's true. That's true. That's true. That's
I love
true.
you, Clay. Just kidding.
But Leo, number one, is just a good dude. I mean, after God's own heart type of guy. And to your point, if there's a more talented guy musically, I don't know him. I guess the only chink in his armor is I guess he doesn't sing. And I still don't know that he can't or he just won't.
He won't.
I'm not real sure about that. But no.
If you've seen some of his videos that they've thrown up on YouTube when Mandy and Leo first started dating, he can sing. He just won't.
Yeah. Well, we'll see about that. We'll see about
his
that.
season will come.
Yeah, seasons. You hear that, Leo? We can get you on a mic, bro. Get you on a mic. But no, he phenomenal job coordinating the two churches. Coming up with the set list and then the execution that entails. But yeah, it's fun watching Leonard. You look at Leo, and most times he's pretty reserved, right? He's doing his magic on the keys and everything. But there were a couple of times, like you said, you turn around, it's like, ooh, if Leo's feeling it, it's real.
Right.
It's real.
Yeah.
I mean, if
Leo
he's up
goes in on those Holy Ghost notes, and if he's straight up feeling it. And
and I didn't know Kev too from Impact. I didn't know. I mean, I heard him play last year, and phenomenal guitarist. But he was in that worship leader role where he was having to play and sing at the same time, which admittedly I can't do. I can't, even if I played guitar. I don't know that I could. I can sing, but doing both, you don't really have the freedom to vocally lead or to shred. Dude, during run-throughs, some of the riffs that he was throwing down on that guitar, I was like, I don't know who you are, but you're not the same dude that played here last year. But wow. And you put him and Leo together, just doing the thing.
And then you throw Matt in on the mix. It was
holy cow.
Borderline Through the Fire and Flames with the battle guitars, and it was insane.
It was absolutely unbelievable. So next year, worship I think is going to be a little more to have a little more limelight than it got this year. I mean, that was just a pretty special moment. But to your point, I think sometimes you have to. It's a chore to identify people who are gifted to do the thing that you need done. With Leo, that wasn't the case. There couldn't have been a more obvious person to be like, hey, do you want to orchestrate the set list and everything? And he's just like, yes. I'm like, well, okay, that was an easy one. I mean, And I think we talked to you about, and you may not remember this either. Maybe I dreamed it, but emceeing next year's event too.
Oh yeah.
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 So
yeah.
so I can talk in front of people. I don't really care for it all that much. And doing everything, being in the executables for base camp, we need somebody that loves people, who can communicate, that is a little more
Right.
trendy and young than Big Nate.
Grown up
Yeah.
Nate. It was grown up Nate.
Grown up Nate.
That's
Grown
what
up
it
Nate.
was. Grown up
Yeah.
Nate. Yeah.
And so Nate Light is going to be. And I say that it's not even Nate Light. It's Nate Extra, I think. Is going to MC for us next year.
Yeah.
So
And
So
that's worth the price of admission right there.
through all the many seasons that you've gone through, as I don't want to make it sound like you're old, but
Oh, I'm old. I'll be 50 in May.
one of the OGs or the elders in the church, you've worn many, the 30 years of worship and serving and everything like that. Is there anything as a mentor seeing a mentee step up that sticks out into your mind?
That's honestly it's and I know I said it about Clayton, but it's a joy to watch you guys step in, and watching people that have participated and kind of watched me model something, and then do it not only to a level that I did it, but take it next level. I think about parenting. I think as a parent, you just want to do for your kids more than your parents did for you. You want to do it better. I want to leave my kids in a better position than my parents left me in. Right, and it's kind of the same thing when you're in a mentor-mentee type of role, especially, and we'll use base camp since we're talking about it. Seeing you guys benefit from the camper and the concept, and getting your feet wet into the ideology of base camp. To man, that was pretty cool. And I want to get involved. To what, I'm leading some stuff. That's got me super excited. Is kind of the I don't even want to call it owner. Me and Dennis being the brainchild behind this evolution of base camp, knowing that we have able-bodied, willing, good-hearted, talented guys that are able to execute on that, and that gives us so much excitement for what's possible next year and down the road. So as you guys were in that mentee role for a long time, now you're wearing the mentor hats, and so now your job is to identify those same new campers that come in that have a fire and a passion to do something, and plug them in, and that way when you're not able to do it, somebody else takes the mantle and runs with it.
I think we're starting to see that
Yeah.
with like Brett and Woody.
Oh, 100%.
And, a bunch of the other guys too. They're stepping up, and it's been really, really cool to see too.
100%.
well, one of the things that I really like is, I think, I don't know if it's because of being so close to the situation, but one of the things that I love is Corinne. She hasn't stopped. Whether there's no women that work back there in in the
tech booth,
media.
yeah.
And
She's one of the guys.
yeah, and so to see something like that is something I couldn't imagine going to, and I don't mean this in a derogative way, as many base camps as you have, but to see somebody finally get a hold of it, just to see what Corinne's done with the media back there. I, for one, wouldn't want to work in a booth full of women. It just kind of, it's like, I'm awkward anyways, so that wouldn't be very comforting for me, because I wouldn't have that what's the general interest? We've got sports, we've got beards and riff stuff, so for her to blossom and to not put a barrier has really opened up my mindset to what God can do too, because it's not a sole area that you're kept to. God can use one person in any way, and just to see that is crazy too. So I know a lot of what we're talking about here is base camp, and that's for the most part a men's encounter. But so I took a little side jog there, but just to see what God can do with one individual that, yeah, they may be a singer on stage, but they also have an interest in this, and God can use that interest to build up something that you're being pressured to, and that's the thing. That was like the podcast with Zach. I wanted to do the podcast, but all the behind the scenes stuff, I was like, that's not my thing.
Say less, fam.
Yeah, and so you can find your horse in your wagon.
Right.
Your horse to your wagon, and that's marriage is the same way too. You find your horse in your wagon. It's not necessarily weaknesses. It's this is what you don't do so well. Let me help you out with that.
Right, and it's never 50-50. It's 70-30.
Well, and that's one of the
100.
key concepts in business, and it applies to church too. Staff your weakness. I mean, we're all gifted differently, yet all joints supplieth. So we could be very similar, but my specific talent or gift should work nicely with yours, or vice versa. I mean, the goal isn't to have everybody that looks and feels and acts and does the same thing. That's boring. Nobody wants that. But use Corinne as the example. I mean, Corinne, she would flourish anywhere. Well, she does flourish anywhere.
Yeah,
right.
She's that type of personality that when she walks into the room, she's not awkward. She's going to make you feel awkward because she's so nice and outgoing. You're like, zone. You're in my space, lady. That type of a deal. But Corinne is like, she played fantasy football with all of us
13
guys.
other guys this year.
So if that gives you any kind of indication, she's just to roll your sleeves up and let's do the thing. As awkward as it is, I'm going to do it. The thing.
And I'm proud to say that I wasn't last.
Yeah.
I came second to last to a gentleman who didn't touch his lineup for half of the season. But hey, you take a win when you can take a win. And that's another thing too is. That I love about home churches is whenever we do the drafts, and the draft is so fun. It's unfortunately I wasn't able to be at this one this year, but even if you're not there, you don't want to make it a habit to go solo. But we talked about this on the Man Cave podcast. The app just makes it so nice to do the select drafts when it's your turn. It goes through. But what was it that got? I mean, obviously you have men football. There's going to be some interest there of wanting to join together. But how did that process come about? Because we've hosted it at your house.
I think what started it was trying to take the mindset of base camp and make it year round.
Yeah.
So something that guys have in common for 6 to 8 months is football.
Yeah.
So
by the time you do the draft
So by the time that started, I came up to Nathan. I'm like, hey, why don't we play fantasy football? He's like, well, how much are you thinking? Like, I don't know, 8, 10 guys. We started with 10, 10, 12, and then 14 this year with Corinne.
And so the objective, like you said, is to continue the base camp. So you made the comment about a good business motto. So we will transition into the business aspect of the Winfield story. So Beards and Riffs, how did that take off?
So it really it started. Sarah and I were involved in a network marketing business some years ago, and we ended up winning a cruise, right? And so we went on this cruise, and Wayne and Emily, our business partners, were on that same cruise. Worked for the same network marketing company, and they do a captain's dinner on night one of your cruise where they randomly sit you at a table with somebody else. And so, like most people, you're dreading who you're going to get seated with, and it's like, I don't want to, maybe we don't want to do this, but we committed. And we're sitting there, and we were tabled with Wayne and Emily, and I don't know, and I'm sure everybody has this experience when you just meet your people, like from the first handshake, the first hello, the energy is there, you're just vibing, and we talked the entire dinner, and we hung out the rest of the cruise. We exchanged numbers. We kept in contact. We did it again on the same cruise the next year. Some of their circle and their business we connected with. So we started going to Nashville to visit them. And along the way in that relationship building, we just started talking about how cool would it be to be in business together? Not knowing at the time, I don't think either one of us even had beards. I mean, on our web, I don't know if we've got them posted on the website. Pre-bearded Nate little rough. But I don't think either one of us had beards, and so but music bonded us together. So we would do karaoke on the cruises and things like that. And so music bonded us. We started growing beards together, and he calls me one day. He's like, "Man, I had a dream last night that we started a beard care company." And he's like, "What do you think?" He's like, "I'm all in." Didn't even have to consider it. I mean, I love beards. I love music. You know, we didn't even have a business plan, so we started coming up with names, and I think 3 days later we were LLC'd as Beards and Riffs Trading Company, and we had a business model. Wayne started ordering merch stuff, and we worked with a graphic designer for our logo. And the funny part about that is she had never met me or she might have met Wayne, but hadn't met me before for sure. And we sent her some ideas of what we wanted, and she comes back with the logo. And if Wayne and I were to,
Yeah.
To have a thing, it would be our logo. I mean, it looks like both of us.
Right.
But that was kind of the way it started. And we started mixing together our own scents and what we liked, and some of what we liked about other products, and take away some of the stuff we didn't like, and we're going into our third year of business, and as we travel across the country, we're figuring out that what we like, a lot of other guys like too. So that was kind of the beginning of Beards and Riffs.
So obviously the beard is a heavy aspect on what you guys sell. Where's
Yeah.
the riffs aspect
So
coming
so
in?
we're both music. So Wayne, I'm just an amateur, music enthusiast. I can sing a little bit. Wayne comes from a legitimate music family. His dad, Bun Wilson, spent some time in Nashville and toured a little bit with Willie and some of these other guys. And so Wayne's got pictures of him on tour buses with different big time old school country music people, and he can play the guitar. He plays the piano, sings like an angel. And so we knew even with beards, that music, we wanted it to be a part of what we did. So that's hopefully one of our focuses in 2024 is to bring the music side of what we do into play. The beard side has taken off so big that we kind of found ourselves behind the 8 ball, trying to figure out processes and how do we keep up with demand and all that kind of stuff, where we hadn't been able to truly put an effort into the music side. But we definitely want to do more, riffing, in 2024. So, at some point this year, we're hopeful to come out with an EP, and to where we do some covers of our favorite bearded artists and things like that. So we're definitely going to put a stronger foot forward on music in 2024. So.
And so one of the things that is interesting to me, first of all, is that leap of faith of, it's easy to just say, it's kind of like the podcast. Hey, you want to do a podcast? And then it becomes reality. And then you start, building up. You made the comment that, you would test the products and, pick out the things that you didn't like, the things that you did like. What was it? What was that process like? Was that a headache for you, or was that kind of, oh man, this is awesome?
That was the most fun ever. We mixed a little bit. Sarah and I did here, and they did the same thing in Nashville. But we took a few days where that's all we did. I mean, his kitchen table in Nashville looked like a science experiment. There were beakers all over the place, and different carrier oils and different scents and things like that. And we just spent the better part of a few days just with us, seeing what we like, what are the notes that we like, and I think we settled on, I don't know, maybe we might have had 6 or 7, 8 different scents. Weren't sold. I mean, we loved all of them. We were like, let's make sure that this is exactly what we want. And so we came back to Springfield, and Wayne and Emily came back with us, and we had some of our bearded friends and not bearded friends. They came over to our house for a smelling party. So we did some food and stuff like that, and kind of introduced Beards and Riffs, and let them smell everything, and did a blind smelling and put notes and their favorites and everything else. And there were 3 clear favorites, and that was our initial run for oils and balms. Was stuff that we liked, and then it was verified through some bearded friends and their wives,
Right.
and that was the start.
And so another thing that I find interesting and that I wanted to kind of talk about for just a minute, you guys kind of hit COVID time when you first start this up.
For sure.
So one of the things you're like, okay, well, why is he traveling all the time? So you guys don't technically have a brick and mortar facility. So your guys, a lot of it is online orders.
Yeah.
Now us churchgoers are fortunate enough that we just, hey man, we need this, this, and this, and you'll bring it to church Sunday, or swing by, pick it up. So for those 90%, I feel like, of the others are going to be, well, I shouldn't say 90%.
Yeah, sure.
But a lot of the other is going to be online order. What's that like? Because I know it's a thing now. Like, that's the Amazon, getting your stuff online. What's that like for the seller's side of it?
Well, I think there's a lot of different ways to build a business. In e-commerce, you can attack it a few different ways. We've chosen relationship marketing. So you can throw dollars at Google advertising, you can throw dollars at Facebook, and a lot of companies do that and find a measure of success with it. We personally feel that that's a less organic and less healthy way to grow. I think it may take you a longer time to get to, where your vision of success is from a financial standpoint, from a success standpoint. But we decided early on, there's 3 different ways that you're going to make money. You're going to have e-commerce, your online sales. You're going to have wholesale relationships, which we have lots of those. I think we're in 9 different states now, 10 maybe. In barber shops and stores and whatnot.
So not necessarily, you don't have your own brick and mortar, but there are brick and mortar locations where the product is sold.
For instance, here in Springfield, you can go to Just For Him and get a hold of our stuff. You can go to Eli's Barber and Style off Lone Pine. You can go to Outlaw Gentleman either in Rogersville or in Ozark. Heart of Grace Boutique. On the square in Ozark also carries our stuff. So we have vendor relationships where people can go in locally and stop in and pick up our stuff. We don't have a brick and mortar, but our primary goal was to travel around and meet people. So we do trade shows, we do barber events, we do vintage market days, those types of things. And what we're finding is when people can get their hands on your product and test it and hear your story, and you can shake hands with somebody and get that contact point. If your product is good and your representation of the brand is good, people love that. And we've had so many conversations, Wayne and I, of not just beard products, but you get into what your career's like, what's your family like, what are your hobbies like. I mean, the meaningful conversations are meaningful first and foremost, but people that love our stuff and buy, now we're seeing a direct correlation between e-commerce sales. Those people are reordering online. Those people are telling people about our product that we've never met. And that's the exciting part. Everywhere we go, we see orders come in 2 or 3 months later from the places where we've done events. Now the interesting thing is we're seeing orders from states that we have never been to. So people are discovering us on Google. People are like telling their brother-in-law about in California about our stuff. And so we're starting to see orders come in from all over the country, and we've never been there. And that's the exciting part about what we're doing. But we believe in that relationship marketing type of mentality. So it's a slower growth model, but it's healthier and more sustainable.
Well, and see, the thing that I noticed too is, and this is, I know the automotive industry is a lot different, but I think it's the same aspect of people aren't necessarily coming to me for what they want. They don't want to have to fix their vehicle. You've got, oh man, we want our beard to be softer. So there's that little bit of a divide. But I like what you said about the personal contact, because we'll have people that, Google ads. I know James spends a good portion of money on Google ads to reach out and to get those, your little shop. But it's the ones that called because we were the only ones that opened. Man, our customer service was great, that we speak with them, we talk with them, we ask them about the kids. The next time they come in, did Cindy do good at her baseball tournament? Oh, you remembered. They tell their brother comes back. Those are the ones that keep coming back. So I really like that aspect. You went out and did we could spend that money, or we could get to know our clientele. And I think that also helps you too, as a new business owner, it's kind of okay, so what am I exactly getting into? Because I think if you just sat behind the desk at home and slung oils out the door, you don't realize, what are these people looking for? What are these people here for? And that's
Exactly.
so,
Yeah.
to see that, I love to hear that states you've never been to, all
Yeah.
of a sudden you're getting orders from. What is the furthest state that you haven't been to that you've gotten an order from?
California. We've got sales in Florida. We've started seeing them come in from Michigan and Maryland. So I mean, they're getting out there distance wise.
So 24 international then.
So we are. I mean, it's a new testing. It's a more stringent testing product, being an all natural product. We're talking to the UK. So obviously our goal, and we don't make any bones about this, is to be the #1 beard care company in the world. And to do that, you've got to go international. And so we've been fortunate to make some connections in the UK that really like our stuff. But right now, you've got to go through more testing. So that's probably in the docket for 2024. Is to complete that testing to make sure sustainability and all natural, all of those things are up to standard for the UK. But
Right. Don't lose your
moment we
quality.
do, there are people that are like, as soon as you're able to ship to the UK and sell here, we want your stuff. So we're on the doorstep of international, but it's been a blessing. Wayne has been an entrepreneur business owner for years. I mean, before this, he did the network marketing thing. He had a dry cleaning business for years. He's just the epitome of an entrepreneur. I mean, there's not a problem that he's scared of. If he's got a vision for it, he wants to make it happen. Burn the ships type of a deal. Let's do the thing. I'm a little more risk averse. So at 48 years old, going 47, I guess, when we had the conversation, going into business ownership for me is a stretch. Still is a little bit. I'm way more risk acceptant than I have been. But Wayne pushes me in some of that with goal setting and getting rid of your safety nets and all of those types of things. But yeah. So I think we wanted to control processes, and we've learned so much in 2 years about products and labeling and merchandise and demand and logistics for travel and all of those things. Some of the things have worked out great. Others, like, man, we're lucky we survived that one, type of a deal. But 2024, I think we're going to start pushing the envelope a little bit.
So we can go back to part 1 and we'll talk about the don't have a favorite child. But out of all of the children of the Beards and Riffs products, I've got my 2 favorite. What are your 2 favorite as far as your scent for the beard oil and your soap scent? Those are my curiosities.
So for me, Anthem is my jam. I'm that sweet tobacco note in there is just it's just where it's at for me. I like all of them. I wear all of them. But if I was to have to choose one, it would be Anthem. Wayne is a rhythm guy. He loves that leather smell, which is problematic because that's also Sarah's favorite. So my wife she loves rhythm. So it can get awkward sometimes. When we're going there tomorrow for a business trip, and so watching her nose getting Wayne's beard a little bit, I'm like, I know you're smelling that rhythm. I know. So I'm wearing rhythm a little more because I like her smelling my beard. But Anthem for me is the one.
Octave came out of nowhere for me. I tried it and I was like, you know what, I like it, but Rhythm was my jam. And Anthem, I like Anthem. Don't get me wrong, the OG. But I was like, man, a Rhythm. But Octave, this last round that I got from you, man, that Octave has just been. It's a morning beautifulness.
That's the one I haven't tried yet, isn't it?
Really?
Yeah.
We have to
So
hook you up.
I rock Anthem.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then I have the
Oh, boy.
OG Christmas one that you came out with.
Right
the
on,
trial
Winter
run.
Wonderland.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I'm still rocking that every
like it.
Christmas so far.
I like it.
And so, as somebody who has a beard, I know that there's been times where you've come into church and somebody will say, "Hey, beard's looking good." You're like, "Oh, don't have anything in it." But if you, as somebody who A, sells these, B, uses them, which product for you do you really? I know that it's each individual product does its own thing, but for you, what is the one that if you could only keep one of them in the pantry at a time, what are you going with? What do you use the most, I guess I should say?
I probably the balm is my everyday user. I just like the softening of the shea butter in that. I love to have a soft beard. Um, so that's my daily user. I mean, I typically don't have dry skin a lot, so oil, as you know, is really about the skin underneath the beard. And so I will wash my beard 3 times a week, sometimes 4 if I play really hard. I rinse it every night. But when I wash it, our conditioning beard wash is off the hook. So that may be my favorite product of all of them because it does a little bit of everything. It cleanses, it moisturizes, it does all of that. But whenever I wash my beard, I'll towel dry it and then use my oil. So I'm only using those 3 or 4 times a week tops. But the everyday user is the balm, man. I'm a believer.
And so the hair product, one of the things that I really liked about the unfortunately my hair is so light that when I put that in there, it gets really, really light, so it looks like I've got bald spots. And so I with the way that I used to do my hair, I wanted to kind of get away from the everyday having to do my hair because I try to pay more attention to the beard, so it's not. So I was like, I'd rather take care of the beard. So I kind of switched up hairstyles. But was there a big, hey, we want some pomade, or was this just you two saying, man, we got to do something with a hair
Well,
product?
to be honest with you, for the bigger bearded guys, the light hold of a balm isn't enough to keep shape. It'll hold temporarily. There's a light hold to it. But for bigger bearded guys, especially those guys with curly hair or kind of wavy hair, and they want more of a structure, we needed a firmer hold, and so that was really the driving force behind that. But we started using it in our hair too when we were testing. I was like, this works really, really well as a hair pomade.
I love the smell.
Yeah,
I use it for both.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
Clayton
base-
Clayton uses it, and he's got one of those big, and it's a fun product because it acts differently if you put it in wet as opposed to dry and blow dry it in. It'll act different. But we've got a barber shop in Illinois that uses our pomade for every hairstyle that he does, and he swears by it. And so it's beginning to get traction. We've got guys that style their mustaches with it.
Yeah, you look at Brett, and that's what he uses.
Yeah, so it's a pretty versatile product, and it gave us a path to non-bearded guys,
Yep.
right? So guys that just had the hair, there's something for them too.
And it lasts. I mean, I think I've had that can. Well, the week that you dropped it, I
Yeah.
got a can, and I've still got a half a can left.
Well,
so
it's-
it's
It depends on what style you're using and how frequently you use it, but I think is it a 4 ounce can? I think.
Yeah, I think
4
so.
ounce 4 ounces worth. So it's a healthy amount. So if you're like me, I mean, I don't know if you can't see it. I've been wearing a hat, but I put it in my beard and hair. So if you're a power user of the product, that can will still last you a while, but you'll move
I think
through
I
it.
got mine on Father's Day when you guys brought everything in,
Yeah.
and still have 2/3 of it, if not more than that.
Yeah. And I think it's important to mention here. I don't want to, I want to tie this spiritual angle into it too. So that same night where we did the blind smelling test with friends of ours, Pastor Clayton and Jamie came, and we were just kind of, like I said, announcing Beards and Riffs Trading Company as an official entity into business, and we wanted to share it with friends and family first. And Jamie and Clayton came over, and everybody at the event laid hands on us and prayed, that God would bless what we were doing. So, we do a lot of things. We get busy. We're in a lot of different places, but for Sarah and I and Wayne and Emily, we're very cognizant of God's hand in our business, and we will all make no bones that about God being the reason and the focus and the reason for our success. When you to have success in business, you need a quality product, but you also need to have favor in people that you deal with and in businesses that you deal with. And God has given us that in spades. And so, and I know in no small part, it's because we dedicated the business to God, and we had fellow believers who were linking arms with us that wanted to see us be successful. Prayed the favor of God over our business, and I think that's an important thing to bring out too. I don't want that to get lost in the shuffle.
Oh yeah, for sure. But for those that are maybe thinking, kicking around, starting their own business, like you just mentioned, favor and having God present is a huge deal. Making sure that you're running all of this stuff through Him. But when was it that you were like, okay, God is this is this is okay? Because I think a lot of people, that's what they're waiting for, right? Is that, when do I do it? Like you said, you're a very not risk taker, so you are kind of cautious. I'm kind of the same way. So whenever it comes to somebody who primarily you're kind of tiptoeing on things, you have a partner that's like, no, we're going all in. So there's two different personalities there. I think God did good by bringing you two together, because now you kind of went from extremely hot water, freezing cold water. Now you guys are room temperature. Things are going to be able to move. What is some advice that you would give people that are A, maybe looking into starting up their own business, or B, they're kind of started it and they're kind of not really reaping the benefits they thought they were going to, but they still feel like this could happen? What's some advice that you would give?
Man, I think first of all, just trust your dream, trust your vision, and there like I said before, there's a thousand different ways you can build a business. You can do it slow, you can do it fast, you can take on a bunch of risk, you can do it conservatively. There really isn't a right and wrong answer, but for me, I think at 47 years old, jumping into a small business and that entrepreneurship was difficult, but I knew who I was going into business with. Wayne and Emily have been very successful in everything that they've done. And so, it's funny. We talk about this all the time. Wayne is that, let's set the world on fire. Let's just go and we'll ask questions later. I'm kind of that way, but I'm more like, hey, let's ask a couple of questions, right? Let's ask a couple of questions before we go, because if things don't turn out quite the way you thought they were, where are you then? So he's the foot on the accelerator guy. I'm kind of, let's pump the brakes a little bit guy. And then you throw in, Sarah and Emily, and we all four bring different things to the table. And Wayne and I get a lot of credit for being the faces of the business, and we're the owners of the business, but that business is going because of Sarah and Emily also. And so, I want to give credit where credit is due. But I would say, if you're going into it with business partners, know who your business partner is. There are times where the brakes need to be pumped, quite honestly. And there are other times you're like, Nate, stop asking questions. This is an obvious decision. Let's
Quit overthinking it. Yeah.
Stop it, and let's go. And we're fortunate enough to both be able to recognize there are times where I've been passionate about things that I was flat out wrong on, and he's the same way. I was like, hey, I know we agreed to do this. I was 100% against this, but everybody else wanted to do it. Nate, you were right.
And again, not to bring it back to a spiritual thing, but that's what this podcast is all about. So I'm going to bring spiritual back into it. It's the same way with a brother in Christ. If you see a brother struggling, hey, man, look, I know you're wanting to hurry and do this, but, you kind of look tired. Maybe you need to calm down. And that's a brother in Christ right there. So, again, spiritual being brought into it. But I think that's not interesting, but it's important to note whenever you are mirroring your lifestyle. Let's just say you're like, okay, so Winfield said that, know who you're dealing with, so I need to find somebody at the church to start a business with. That's not what Winfield's saying. He's saying that you can trust them. And I think it's important that people understand, because they're going to go, okay, so this is how he did it, and if I trip and fall, then I failed and I didn't do it right. You just made the comment. There are many different ways to start a business. This is just how we did ours. So whenever I ask him to give some information, I'm not telling you that Winfield is the beard guru. I'm not telling you that he's the business guru. What I am telling you is I believe in what he's doing. I trust in what they're doing. And if you want to pursue, if you want to do whatever it is, you may have a mirroring walk of what Winfield's going through right now. You may have a full-time job. You may be looking to try to start something else. I know Brett and Natasha, there for a long time, multiple irons in the fire. You know, she was doing the taxes and
Yeah, that's what she's currently doing now. Is
and
just
so and
straight
then now
taxes,
she's
yeah.
got Mary Kay, and so
Yeah, that
there's
too, yeah.
there are people in the church who are trying to start their own thing. Obviously, Jamie and Clayton, Tantera Farms. So it's just important that people understand that there are going to be different things. There are going to be different seasons. Just because Winfield kicked it just right, the Lord blessed him with Wayne. The Lord blessed him with a person that he could connect with and accept scrutiny from.
Mhm.
If it's something, if you're a person that's, I'm right, no matter what happens, probably, you know, you're going to have to give some. But I just, I really like, to me, starting your own business. It's been cool to see James go through his process at the automotive shop, but that's a brick and mortar, one location. You guys are here, 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 here. And the thing is James, I'm not saying that he's not the face of the place,
Right.
but he can bounce in and out. You guys are the face of the company. So it's a completely different business, but it's still a business owner. And it's still young in it. I mean, I think James has only been doing it for 3 years. You've been doing it for 3 years. So to see the differences and yet the similarities, you have to have that.
Right.
You have to be able to sit back and accept if you're wrong. Like you said, there's been times where you've been too passionate about stuff, and you look back on it now, you're like, wow, that was kind of, but you know, missed the boat. But I know that there are people who are watching that do have their own businesses or they're trying to kickstart their stuff. And so that was kind of why I asked the question about if you had any advice and stuff like that. But one thing that I also like that you said, you didn't leave out the wives. And Sarah is the one that, if she's going with you to an event, she's got her own job too. So it's not like you guys have a house, you guys have your children, you have dogs. So it's not like it's just Sarah and Nathan have no kids. They live in an apartment with no responsibilities. You have a pool. You have a hot tub that you have to keep chemicals in and stuff like that. So being a business owner, although they're like, oh, wow, look at that jacked up GMC with those nice wheels, it must just be heaven on earth for Winfield. And Winfield's driving like what I wouldn't give to just have 2-hour nap in my own couch.
Right.
And it's like, oh, he's traveling. There are
And I think that's an important thing, as like, you know, having a full-time job and trying to build a business at the same time and do all the other things that life throws at you. It is exhausting. But the thing that always, it never ceases to amaze me is you look at our travel schedule, you look at our event schedule, even for 2024. It doesn't feel like work to me. Yes, there's effort. Yes, you get tired. Yes, you do all the things, but it's all things to see a vision come to pass and to build success. And so it doesn't seem weird. So you ask about advice, and I think my advice is just do the thing. I don't care how old you are. You know, do your passion. And there are going to be times in the process where you're going to find measures of success, and there are going to be times where you're doing everything wrong. That doesn't change the passion. That changes the process to get the passion out in front of people, right? So you can't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid to be too successful, and give yourself and everybody else involved in your business lots of grace. Lots of grace. You're not going to do it all right. You're going to take 2 missteps before you take the sure step, right? And that's okay. You know, some businesses and some people are more fortunate, and they just, you know, everything that they touch turns to gold, and it seems super easy. Well, that's not most people's path. But just do your passion and go at a rate that's comfortable for you. If you're a risk taker, take risks. If you're not a risk taker, then don't. Take baby steps, but always do something that's going to further your passion or your vision. Whether that's going into business, whether it's a spiritual gift, I don't care what it is. Always do something that's furthering your vision or your passion. And if you do that, you'll find you know, fulfillment in what you're doing.
I seen an interview, and one of my favorite people to listen talk, and I really enjoy just reading all of his stuff, is Kobe Bryant. And one thing that I really like is his mindset. He was somebody who he was different than Michael Jordan. He wasn't like Michael Jordan in the fact that Michael Jordan won and he was very good and he was very cocky acting. Kobe Bryant act like he never won a ring. And he was talking to Nick Saban, who, I mean, I think that's why it came up on my feed because Nick Saban just retired. But Kobe Bryant was talking to Nick Saban, and Nick Saban goes, "These kids just don't get it." And Kobe goes, "No, they don't get it." He goes, "Guys get mad when they don't win a ring at the end of the year." And he said, "I keep telling guys, quit worrying about that. You're building a basketball legacy." And I know we're talking beards and riffs in church, but it's a concept of you, whenever you are building this, whatever it is, the business, you are right up against it and you're not stepping back and looking at it being built. And Kobe Bryant goes, I think if these kids would step back and learn, okay, well, last year my shooting percentage was this year it's this. So I gained. Yeah, we didn't win a champion. He goes, yeah, the big picture is a championship. He said, but you have to focus on the little wins and all of this stuff. And you wouldn't think Kobe Bryant is a little win kind of guy. It's all or nothing with him. And he's like, no, I celebrated every win to myself, but I didn't do it outwardly because if I would have done that, everybody's watching this and they're like, okay, Kobe's weak because he's celebrating that he got 10 more points last night. And he was like, but those were little things that I got myself excited about. So it's the little wins too that you can celebrate. And it's like you made the comment, it was a smelling, that was all it was, a smelling party. And you have somebody lay hands over you for your business. That's a little picture at the time, right? A lot going on. We're getting our sense figured out. We've got all of these things that we've got planned. But what's the biggest thing that you just spoke about that popped up, Jamie and Clayton, and laying hands on you? So, yeah, there's that little picture of, to me, that would be hectic. A party at the house trying to figure out which scent. To me, I'm just like, can we cancel this? So, but that's just how I am. So if I've got more than 2 things scheduled on my booklet for the day, I'm done for the week. Like that's so. But yeah, for that to be a little nugget that you could take from that. What is, besides something like that? You're out on the road. You're tired. Like you just said, you make the comment about how Clay asked you, you know, how are you doing spiritually? So I want to kind of land this plane. I've got a haircut appointment, and so I don't want to try to jam anything last minute, so I'm trying to make this kind of transition smooth. But for those who are burning candles at both ends, for those that have this and this and this going on, and they're away from home, and, you know, yes, like you said, you're not working, but you're not home. What is it that keeps Nathan Winfield going? What is it? I know obviously you have the business, you want the business to prosper, but at the end of the day, whenever you're down and low, I know how it is, it always reverts back to God, especially whenever that's the main focus and the pivot point of your business. So what is it that God has given you that has helped you in these times? Because if he didn't give you anything, you wouldn't be crying about worship. Because he's still with you. He's still there. What is it that he has helped you with to get? Is it the fact that you don't look at it as business and he's blessed you with these opportunities? Or what is it that keeps you going?
Man, I think it's a little bit of all of the above. I mean, when you get a chance to look back, and looking back is so important, not just successes but failures, and finding out that God was right there orchestrating things with you, and what you thought was your lowest point, he was viewing as an obstacle that needed to be overcome to get you to where you are today. And so, 2024, we sang a song last week, the week before, and it's called Mercy. It's like if you would have known me then, you would believe me now. The things that I'm saying, and looking back and seeing the mercy and the love and the favor and the faithfulness of God throughout a lifetime of not just personal experience, but business wise too, relationally, all of those things, being able, God leading me in understanding that my performance is not necessary for his love or approval or my success, right? Um, Having the freedom to know, to allow myself to make mistakes, to allow myself to misstep, and to still walk in his favor, in love. I think that's a huge thing. That's so freeing on so many levels. Because when it's just you in a truck on a highway and it's dark and there's 300 miles between you and a destination, that's a lot of time to reflect, and it's not always fun to reflect. I mean, not just the day, but how does me being gone affect my relationship with Sarah? What did I miss there? How am I missing it in ministry? How am I missing it relationally with God? And that's where your mind gravitates. But then in that same process, you begin to experience the faithfulness of God. Yeah, you were lesser than here, but this is where you are now. This is what I'm speaking to you now. That's yesterday's news. My love is new every morning for you. And that's renewing. For me. And so I think what keeps me going. It's a lot of that, because I wear more than just a beards and riffs hat. And I think we talked about it in the first section. First hat is family. And sometimes we get so busy and so focused on everything but that family becomes a little bit strained. And so having the right focus and the ability, the latitude to make mistakes and to know that God still loves me, Sarah still loves me, my church family still loves me, even though I only see them, every other week, every other weekend, one weekend a month, whatever it is. Support system is good. Freedom to navigate life is good. And chase after the things that God has for me in this season is important. So I think just focus is the big thing, and a healthy understanding of God is my sustenance. God is my finances. God is my mental strength. God is my insert thing there, and He is. And the more I dwell on that, the more I understand it's less about me and more about freedom to do what He wants.
And then I guess before we fully close, is there anything that we could be praying for you and Sarah and Wayne about?
Man, obviously just we're traveling a lot, so balancing balancing business and personal things and church and everything else is hard. So I think just focus and keeping important things important, and managing the big rocks, and the small rocks will fall into place. So I think just a healthy focus on growth personally, spiritually, relationally, and professionally. I think everybody can deal with a dose of prayer and those things, but I think just walking the path before me, and beards and riffs, and that's where, if I could covet a prayer, it would be for that.
All right, everybody heard that, and so the what we like to do at the end of everything, most like we said, for the most part, this podcast is. I don't want to say off the whim, because I feel like the Lord has a plan for each podcast, but we don't have a set schedule. Or I mean, we have a schedule, but we don't have a here's this, and then we're going to talk about this and talk about this. So is there, I know we had a part one and a part two now, but was there anything that we didn't touch on that you're like, oh, I kind of, the Lord was kind of had me excited talking about this, and I kind of wanted to bring it up, but it was never brought up? Because I know I'm going to miss it. I'm not going to listen. There's going to be things that I'm going to want to sidetrack off to, but is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't really touch on?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we touched on quite a broad,
Yeah, quite a bit.
yeah, a lot of topics, but no, I think there was a healthy dose of spiritual wins and losses, and I think at the end of the day, business is important, but it's not eternal. You know, what's the old adage? He who dies with the most toys still dies.
Yeah,
And then what?
can't take the U-Haul with you.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, or the Denali, you know, as it were. You know, it's fun to drive, but I think you know, this podcast does a good job of keeping the spiritual focus. And you know, to reiterate, you know, I think as we prosper spiritually and inwardly, we will manifest that same thing outwardly. So regardless of whether you're building a business or building a family, keep God first. He's our source for all success. And the measure we spend time with God and focused on God will eventually translate into success in all aspects of your life.
One thing that I really like that Clayton said to me one time, and it just stuck with me, and it's really, really helped me get a better grasp for things. Yes, I work for X, Y, and Z, but it's what God's got me doing. You work for God, and He's got you in certain places. And so I know that we can get caught up in, man, I work from 7 to 5. No, you don't. You don't work from 7 to 5. You're working 24/7. Yeah, God, you'll sleep, but as long as there's breath in your lungs and you profess Him to be your Lord and Savior, you work for Him. So while you're working for Him, yes, you may work at this place. You may work here and there, but at the end of the day, who signs your check? God does. God's the one that signs your check. Well, no, Walmart says no. No. God gave you the ability to be there, and He's got something for you. So that was one thing, too, that I really liked, is to understand we have so little to do with us. We do have a lot, but at the same time, we have so little to do with us. Our success and all of this stuff, you know, we put the weight on our own shoulders, but you just made the comment. At the end of the day, there's one guy we answer to.
Well, and I heard a youth pastor said one time years ago, you know, we try to compartmentalize, you know, priorities in our life. Okay, well, it's God and family and country and job, whatever it is your list is. But he was like, you know, that's really not quite right. Really, the list goes like this: God first in your family, God first in your job, God first in your church, God first in your friendships, God first in your hobbies. So it's not compartmentalizing God and then everything else. It's letting God permeate every aspect of your life to where, regardless of what you're doing, you're bringing glory to Him in the thing that you do. So don't treat your priorities as a priority list. Put God first in your parenting. Put God first in for your spouse. Because one of the overarching themes when I get along with myself on the highway is inevitably, how can I be a better husband? How can I be a better dad? How can I be a better employee? How can I be a better whatever it is? Because I'm beginning to understand nobody knows how to be the husband that Sarah needs more than the Holy Spirit does. Nobody knows how to be the father that Taylor and Savannah need more than the Holy Spirit does. Nobody knows how to be the best employee for American National better than the Holy Spirit does. So the common denominator in all of those things is, if I'm closer to God, if I'm closer to the Holy Spirit, I'm going to be a better dad. I'm going to be a better husband. I'm going to be a better owner. I am going to be a better insert whatever you do. You're better, because nobody knows how to do it as good as God knows how to do it. So don't separate God and family and country and job. Don't do that. Incorporate God into everything that you do, and you'll find a measure of success in that.
Couldn't have said it better. I love
Right.
that.
Yeah.
You got anything?
I don't.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we're going to go ahead and land this plane. I would like to thank you again, Mr. Winfield, for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
We appreciate the swag. Your boys got some hats. Thanks to Beards and Riffs. I was going to say Big Boy, or
Adult one.
Big Nathan is what I was going to say. Thanks to Big Nathan, but no, it was like we said, we don't really have an outline. I mean, we do have an outline. It's to let the Spirit move, but it has been a minute since we've done one of these. It was
October,
really fun.
yeah.
It was really fun. It's nice to do one of these again, and it was nice to open it up. with Winfield. But one of the things that I really was excited about today was, like I said, we haven't done one of these in so long, and I kind of forgot about the podcast. And on my watch, my Apple Watch, my background on it is our background, and so I look at it every day whenever I go to look at the time. But it was about a month ago. I was like, man, I kind of miss doing these. Like, I really miss looking forward to it. Like, it is nice to have a Saturday where you don't have a plan. You can just kind of get up and off the whim. But it's also nice to be able to have the Spirit just kind of get you worked up again whenever it comes to stuff like this, and knowing whenever you bring somebody in and you sit them in that chair, it's vulnerable. Yeah. It's not just like we have this checklist of stuff on the back of the bag and Nathan's got answers that he's going to give us that sound good. It's somebody's actual physical, emotional, it's their feelings, it's them. And so we do appreciate opening up, and whether it was easy to talk about or not, it was something that the Spirit led you to speak about, and you did. And so if I didn't bring it up out of mindless chatter, the Spirit brings it up, right? So that's what we're going to say it is a Spirit. But we appreciate each and every one of you watching part 2. Again, part 1 was the majority of... I want to say Nathan, but whenever I say Nathan, I'm Nathan, so I feel like it's weird.
The Winfield
so I stopped
saga,
myself.
yes.
Yeah, the Winfield story was, the more spiritual. The second part of it was spiritual as well, but this second part has been more about home church and the business side of things. So we appreciate you if you stuck around for the second one, for sticking around, and that's about all I have. We have service tomorrow starting at 9 o'clock. Pastor Clayton just made an announcement last week. For those of you that are watching live, 8 o'clock, they will be doing prayer over the service. So usually they would do it on Saturday. Now at 9 o'clock, well, I shouldn't say now, but 9 o'clock in the morning. They've moved that, and it will be at 8 o'clock Sunday morning. If you find yourself, which I don't think I have this problem, but getting here early with nothing to do, I have 2 things at home that make sure that I'm very late most of the time. So love you guys so much, especially the little one. But I hardly ever find myself getting here too early. It's usually too late. But if you get here early, they will be praying over the service back in the youth room. So 9 o'clock service, 8 o'clock. If you're early, you can pray. Anything else?
Nope, I think that's it. So, again, like Nathan said, thank you for coming in and kicking off part 2 of season 2. A lot of big things for you guys happening in 2024, so we'll be looking forward towards that. We're praying for you guys.
Thank you.
And hopefully our partnership and you sponsoring us and stuff like that, we can do an event with you guys or something like that in the future.
Sure.
But again, thank you guys for watching. We love you guys. Thank you for giving us this platform to share everything and just grow God's kingdom. Stay blessed. See you guys tomorrow.